Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for Monday, March 16, 2015. Could we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Present.
Councilman Bruno. Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Drosha.
Here.
Councilmember Ferris.
Here.
Councilmember Mulvaney.
Here.
Mayor Waltz.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Would you please stand and join the Mayor Pro Tem with the pledge and invocation this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, we seek your blessings on the tasks before us this night. Bless our efforts with clear insight. Bless our deliberations with wisdom. Bless our work with clarity and accuracy. And bless our decisions with impartiality. Amen.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Council members, are there any announcements this evening? Hearing none, we will move to people from the floor. May be here to speak to something that is not on the agenda and not on the public hearing. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, presentations. First is Rob Baums from MDOT. If you would please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Rob Baums. I live in East Lansing, Michigan. And I work for the Michigan Department of Transportation and the Bureau of Transportation Planning. Proposal 1. Well, you've probably all heard in the news about Proposal 1, but I'm just going to give you a quick high-level summary. I understand you have materials already. So I'll just get right to the point and share with you what it entails. And as an employee of MDOT, I'm not here in any way, shape, or form to advocate for Proposal 1, for or against. Just want to share information and resources. So late in the lame duck session, the legislators put together a package which ultimately became Proposal 1. 11 transportation bills are tie-barred to a proposed increase to the sales and use tax in Michigan from 6 to 7%. Because the sales tax is being proposed to increase, that requires an amendment to the state constitution, hence a vote by the people in a special general election on May 5th. Now, getting to the transportation aspects, what that means is that the way we fund transportation in Michigan could be changed with voter approval of Proposal 1. What that involves is the current excise tax on gasoline, the 19-cent per gallon tax that you pay for gas, the 15-cent per gallon that you pay for diesel, as well as compressed natural gas, will all be changed to be based on a wholesale-based price of fuel, with a rate of 14.9% of the wholesale price charged to everyone at the pump. And that wholesale price will be based on a rolling 12-month average that the state treasury sets. So it will be locked in year by year, will not rise any more than 5 cents per year, and will continue to rise with inflation. So what that basically means is today you pay around 19 cents per gallon plus sales tax on gasoline, which based on the price of gas today maybe equates to around 30 cents per gallon. Under Proposal 1, you would pay approximately 40 to 42 cents per gallon, so around a 10 cent per gallon increase with the new structure. But part of this package now is, in addition to the wholesale price of gas, the sales tax that exists on gasoline and diesel right now will go away permanently. So no longer will you go to the pump, pay your gas tax, pay your sales tax, and see transportation funding allocated in different ways. In other words, as it stands today, you pay funding for roads, bridges, transit when you go to the pump. But you also see that sales tax on gas and diesel go to other areas, schools, some local government funding, and a real small fraction to transit. So that amount of $800 to $1 billion a year will go away and be replaced by this new fuel tax structure. So then what happens to that funding that schools rely on with the sales tax on gas and diesel? Well, the legislators decided that something needed to be done there, and that's the reason why you see, in part, this increase of sales tax from 6 to 7% to fill that void by the new fuel tax structure. And so what that entails then is that additional 1% of sales tax will go to schools, local governments, transit. There will be some also new incentives for earned income credit. And that 1% will generate not only the $800 to $1 billion that the sales tax currently generates on gasoline, but it will probably result in an additional $300 million, anywhere from $200 to $300 million for schools each year, as well as anywhere from $100 to $300 million for the general fund and some local government, as well as some other sources. So all in all, from the transportation standpoint, this new restructured wholesale price will generate around $1.2 billion a year of new funding for transportation, roads and bridges. Another $100 million per year for transit. And it all hinges on, of course, a vote by the people on May the 5th. Now, I want to also mention from a transportation funding standpoint, there's also registration fee changes that are going to hypothetically go into place on October 1st, 2015, if the voters approve this ballot initiative. As a motorist today, the car that you own will see no registration fee changes. However, if you purchase a new car, starting in 2016, you're going to see that current Secretary of State discount fee go away. Say if you buy a car today in 2015 and you pay $150 fee in a registration fee, as things stand today, years 2, 3, and 4, you see consecutive 10% discounts. So then starting in year 4 onward, as long as you own that car, you get that discounted fee. Well, that's going to go away under Proposal 1, the new system, if you buy a new car in 2016 onward. So that's going to generate some additional funding as well. Now, truckers will see the biggest changes in registration fee increases. Your smaller truck, your local delivery truck, your UPS, your FedEx truck, they're not going to see any registration fee increases. The mid-sized trucks over 26,000 pounds are going to see about $150 a year increase over 3 years. And then your larger trucks, your typical 5-axle, 18-wheeler truck with a gross vehicle weight of 80,000 pounds, they're going to see a $600 registration fee increase per year. And the really large trucks are going to see a $1,000 a year increase in fee. All that will generate additional revenue, a part of that $1.2 billion funding package. But finally, I just also want to mention for those who drive hybrid cars and electric cars, part of this package, like I mentioned, that 11-bill tie-barred package includes surtaxes, $25 a year for hybrid vehicles and $75 a year for electric vehicles. So that gets at the overall numbers game, if you will, of Proposal 1. If you have any questions, please feel free to provide them to me. And that summary captures, in essence, what I discussed today. But if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Balmas. Are there any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question. Thank you, Mr. Balmas, for attending this evening and providing some insight on what seems to be a rather complex proposal on the ballot. My question is, obviously, this funding is to shore up a shortfall within the current transportation funding mechanism of to the tune of $1.2 billion. Can you explain maybe the impact on our roads without having that funding in place? I know there are some small funds currently in the fiscal year budget to address roads, but not nearly enough, at least from what I've read, to keep pace with the amount of maintenance and repair that is needed. I don't know if you can speak to that at all.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge to get into the details. The governor has come out front in this issue and stating that as a state, county road commissions, local governments, and the MDOT need at a minimum at least $1.2 billion of funding just to meet our needs moving forward, just to try to keep the system as it is out there today that you see in place. So this type of funding, this package, is really going to focus on continuing to preserve our existing assets, our transportation assets. Some legislators have called for higher numbers than that, upwards of $2 billion plus that are needed, but I'm not going to get into those figures. That's their job and their prerogative. But I'm just really here to talk about what the governor's vision is, and it's really focusing on that $1.3 billion target. But one thing I do want to mention as well, this is kind of something I should mention for the city of Mason to be aware of, is if Proposal 1 does pass, the first 2 years, this was a decision the legislators made, is the new funding is really a large amount of that new funding is going to be used to pay down the state transportation fund debt. I talked about that $1.2 billion, around $800 million a year in the first year is going to be devoted to paying down the debt of the state transportation fund. Year 2, there's going to be around $400 million allocated toward debt. So the city will get around a 20% increase in what you get now for transportation in year 1, 40% year 2, and by year 3 you'll get the full amount of Proposal 1, which is about a 60% increase to your funding. Just wanted to put that out there because I don't think a lot of folks are aware of that. That's part of the decision in putting the package together. That will free up more capital then in outlying years for more projects.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Just one little one.
Councilmember Ferris?
I was just going to ask if you knew the current amount of the outstanding transportation debt.
That's a great question. I could certainly get that back to you. I could talk with our finance folks and relay that number to you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Balmas.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation, sir. The next presentation is by Mr. Christopher Mumby, who is representing the Camino of St. James 8K Run. That's an annual event sponsored by St. James. Christopher.
Good evening. Christopher Mumby, 827 Charrington Court here in Mason. And I'm here to ask permission to hold our 6th annual Camino of St. James. It's an 8K and a 5K with a couple kid runs. Same start and finish as the previous 5 years. We have turned in a contingency plan in the event that there isn't a bridge to cross going from the cemetery to Jefferson. And that plan, I understand, has been reviewed and is okay with administration here. We utilize over 100 volunteers to put on this event. Many of them on the course at all intersections. It's a very safe event, very fun event, and it's very well received in the community. It's all nonprofit. We split the proceeds with St. Vincent Catholic Charities, and some money stays at St. James Church and is used locally here. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Mumby? Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.
The next presentation will be the annual report on the fire department. Chief Kerry Minshaw. Good evening, Chief.
I'm Gary Minchell, 808 Cindy Street, and I am your fire chief. I'm here to present the 2014 Annual Fire Department Report. I hope you've had a few minutes to look through it. If not, you can peruse it tonight when you can't get to sleep. You can look through those stats, and it's better than counting sheep. Seriously, it's always an honor to give the annual report as I look back and reflect on some of our accomplishments over the past year. I'm not going to read the report to you. I'll hit a couple of highlights that I felt were important. On page 3, the officers. I've been the fire chief since 2007, and this officer staff has been in place since 2007. So we've got a lot of stability in our membership and officers. Page 4 is our membership roster as of the end of 2014. We currently have 34 firefighters, 3 trainees, and myself, for a total of 38 members on the fire department. The 3 trainees, lucky them, they get to take their state firefighter exam, their written part, Wednesday, and then next week they'll be taking their practical exam, so hopefully we'll be adding the firefighter classification behind 3 more names shortly. The class starts in December 1st, and we have it here at the fire station. We've hosted it here for the last several years now. This is for all of Ingham County, so this is through the Ingham County Fire Chiefs Association. And we do that. We have a lot of instructors ourselves. We have 4 instructors on our fire department, and we have a lot throughout the county. So we put the class on and save a lot of money for our department rather than send them out. Please take a minute when you get time and read through the year in review. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Our fire department is very active, not just putting out fires, but we probably do more other stuff than put out fires. We're real active in the community, and we help at the fair, we help at parades. Most community events, you're going to see some presence of the fire department there. We're in a lot of committees. We belong to the Metro Fire Chiefs, the County Chiefs Association, the Ingham County Hazmat, and the Tanker Task Force. I still sit on the 911 Advisory Board and also have a governor appointment to the Michigan Citizen Community Emergency Response Coordinating Council. That's MCSERC. Captain Dennis Howe is still our training officer, and he is also the training coordinator for all of the departments in Ingham County. And in fact, they're just getting done with their meeting at the station now. They were heading out the door when I came over. The Fire Association is a real integral part, or the cornerstone, if you will, of our department, and I think a lot of the reason for our success in recruitment and retention. Through the association is where we do a lot of our fundraising and those community events that you see us in. We also keep our retirees and our honorary members busy. They come out and do rehab and help us at all of our events, and it keeps them engaged. And auxiliary members, family members, are also welcome and show up and help a lot around the station. We also have community volunteers through our Fire Corps. Our Fire Corps shows up and helps at rehab, and we also help members after they've had a fire get back on their feet. A recently added addition to that is the Mason Area Disaster Response Team to help coordinate efforts and work with the Red Cross in the event that we have a large catastrophe in town. The Fire Association has raised a lot of funds over the years, and some of you may recall, may not recall, the original Squad 815 was purchased by the Fire Association. The James Malcolm Fire Safety House trailer that we use to take to the schools and the fair and do our fire prevention, that was purchased by the association. And our largest purchase would probably be our rescue boat and trailer to haul it in. And there's been many other firsts along the way. The first extrication gloves, the first wildland gear, a lot of that stuff was initiated and purchased by our members when they saw a need for it. They went out and worked for it and donated that to the city to help better our cause. One of our big events of the year is our annual open house. We saw about 500 people come through the open house this last year. Many of them, I think most of them went on fire truck rides, some 2 or 3 times. We had 20 classroom visits at the station where they come up and go through a fire prevention program, and a lot of scout groups throughout the year. I'm going to jump to page 8. This is a real important page, and this isn't just the fire department. This is includes the public works and the council and the budgeting and everything. The ISO page, the ISO looks at a lot of things when they rate your city and department, and they look at training, your pumping capacity, the ability to deliver water, how many firefighters you can put on the scene of a structure fire, how long it takes them to get there, and they look at the education of your membership and your command staff. And so I bolded the sentence at the bottom because I think it's very important, very telling for the city of Mason and all that we do as a city to work towards this. It should be noted that of the 2,135 fire departments rated in Michigan, only 26 have achieved a better PPC than Mason. This says a lot about our community. It says a lot about our fire department. It says a lot about our public works and our council. And it's a great economic tool. When people are looking for a community to settle in, that's something worth mentioning. I move on to our service area. We currently cover about 85 square miles of area. And in that 85 square miles is a little over 16,000 residents that we serve. We picked up, as you know, beginning January 1st of 2014, through a subcontract with Delhi Township, we picked up an area of Alladin Township, and that has added to our run count and our square miles that we serve. We had quite an increase in runs in 2014 as well as the end of 2013. If you recall, we had some severe weather and a lot of snow and ice and storms through the end of December and early January, bolstering these runs. About 17 of these runs were in the new Alladin service area. Runs in the city itself, 102. You can look through the charts and stuff as you go. Page 12 is the Mason's specific breakdown of the runs in the city. Went to 8 structure fires in the city, and the average firefighters on the ground were 19.1 for structure fires and 11.6 for all others. And the response times, 3.9 minutes. That's not just emergency, but that counts to 82 non-emergency calls, too. So when you figure when they call the chief in the middle of the night and he takes his time to put his boots on and everything else, that all figures into that number. I'll jump past the townships as we move on. This is an interesting chart on page 16 of the call volume by day of the week and hour of the day. This is provided by the 911 dispatch center, and it looks like Friday at 4 was the most active time. I always thought it would have been a Saturday, but it always ends up on a weekday. Page 17 lists the structures that we had in the city. These numbers are estimates for the value, and they're not replacement value. I typically go on BS&A and look up the true cash value of the property and work from there. These are not insurance settlement costs. I'm going to jump right ahead. I know you got a busy night. Page 19, mutual aid. Mutual aid is real important to Mason, especially in the outlying areas. We give and receive mutual aid. A lot of this is for tankers and water shuttles in the non-hydranted areas. Mutual aid was given by Mason 38 times, and we received mutual aid 19 times. And on the next page, if you will, there's a breakdown, if you're curious, as to what those mutual aid calls were given and received for. We did respond in 29 mutual aid structure fires, and if you add that to the structure fires in Vevay, Aurelius, and the city of Mason, our members went to 47 structure fires last year. Along with the mutual aid received, we receive assistance from our honorary firefighters, retirees, and the Fire Corps. They assisted us at 54 incidents. And also on PI accidents and structure fires, pin-in accidents and structure fires, Ingham County Heavy Rescue is an automatic tone out with us, so they responded to several of our incidents as well. Education and training on page 21. Like I said, Captain Howe is the training coordinator not only for our department, for the Ingham County departments as well. Our members, since time began, have met every other Friday night. I believe it's since time began. So that we meet every other Friday night for about, well, we always tell them 2 hours and we keep them 3 or 4 hours. But 26 times a year. And on top of that, there's a lot of additional training. I've had members go through the officer classes this past year. They train with the Tanker Task Force, the hazmat team, ice rescue. Pretty much everything that we do throughout the year requires some type of training. And they spent an additional 1,250 hours on that additional training. The picture at the bottom of 21 is the same one that's on the cover page. We had the opportunity to burn a house down for training this past year. This is in Aurelius Township, 840 South Gale Road. This was a joint effort. The Michigan State Police were hosting a fire investigator class, and at the end of their 2-week program, they like to burn a house down, and they have arson sets in it. And that's kind of the final exam for their class, is to go dig out those 5 or 6 arson sets and see if they can figure out what caused the fire. So this was a joint effort with several agencies and the MSP to host it. So we actually did put this house out the first time, and then we burned it down the next day. Page 22, if you get a minute, and I know you've already knew about the life-saving event on Sycamore. This is a version I just added in there to recognize the fine work from our fire department that saved a life in the city of Mason this past August. And I just clipped a couple of pictures out. This fire on Curtis Road, this was a good save. This was a fire on the front porch. It burned into the house, and this is Fire Marshal Dan Kennedy. Dan is a fire investigator. He's trying to find the cause of this fire. And we've had our usual amount of accidents, dryer fires. Page 24 was an interesting call where we had to call for a field fire, and then when we got to the field fire, there was a semi-truck in the middle of it and trailer on fire. So you never know what you get till you get there. You can only listen to the dispatch information, and then sometimes you get a surprise when you show up. Firefighter of the Year last year, 2014, was Scott Predmore. Every year I like to recognize one of our members that I feel really embodies the volunteerism and the spirit of the fire department. And this is one of those individuals. I have many. It's often hard to choose this award because I have a lot of people that meet the qualifications. At our award ceremony that we have with our Christmas party and dinner, firefighters Scott Davidson, Jake Myers, and Josh Woodland were awarded a life-saving Medal of Honor for their heroic actions on the Sycamore Street fire in August. And then meritorious unit commendation bars were also given to the rest of the responders on the first due truck. So please look through it. I'd be happy to entertain any questions. As usual, my conclusion, it's just always a great honor to be able to work and manage this fine group of firefighters in the city of Mason. I've got one of the lucky jobs where I have people that volunteer and want to come to work, and I don't have to coax them. They love to do it. They just wait for the pager to go off and give them the opportunity to give back and serve to the community. So thank you for your patience. I would be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Council members? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for being here tonight. I always enjoy the annual report, and I always enjoy particularly the chart that shows when you had the most calls. I think last year it was like Wednesday at 2 or something, but it's always interesting to see that. Just a few questions for you this evening while we have you here. One of the things I wanted to do, continuing from last year, is get an opportunity to ask our department heads about challenges from the previous year and goals and priorities in the coming year. So I posed that question broadly to you. What was your biggest challenge in 2014, and maybe your top priority or top 2 priorities for this year?
I think our biggest challenge was early last year in 2014, coming off the end of 2013 with all the storms and a lot of unusual and extra activity. It's, as you know, our members are volunteers and they all have regular lives and regular jobs elsewhere than the fire department. But for a time, they were here every day, all night long, day and day, and for several weeks, even into the end of January. So it's always a challenge to try and balance that, getting people to show up and work all night long and get up and go to their job day after day after day, when you see those huge events like that, that's very difficult. And so that was a challenge, and I think our members really stepped up to the plate and delivered with that. As far as moving forward, I think we've already talked about several of these things at our visioning session, and I think the challenge to keep an ISO rating of 4, which the city has, is not an easy task. And I think as we move forward, we need to just be cognizant. When we talk about our vehicle replacement, we talk about education and training, and we talk about maintenance of our infrastructure, our hydrants, and our water system. I think those are challenges that not just the fire department, but the council as a whole needs to look at, because it's a really a nice thing to have a 4 PPC as an economic tool, and like I said, it speaks volumes to the city of Mason, and I think that we're all part of that, and I think that's one of the challenges going forward is to keep that edge.
Thank you for that answer. And then just to follow up, you mentioned briefly about some of the things that we talked about at our visioning session, and I know that was a public meeting as well, but I wanted to give you an opportunity tonight to maybe briefly comment on the fire ordinance idea that you have, and maybe why that's important for the council to consider and why it's important for the city to have.
Are you speaking of a fire code?
Yes.
Okay. Of course, I am a promoter for a fire code in the city of Mason. I think back in 2011, the state adopted NFPA 1 as the model fire code, and the city doesn't have any local enforcement over that, so we're kind of at the mercy of the state to monitor and regulate that. I would like to see a local fire code in the city to give myself something in the toolbox and Officer Duthie something when we go out on those complaint-based calls for blocked exits. They don't have extinguishers. They're barbecuing on the patio. And a lot of those things that fall under the fire code that are safety items that our residents, maybe you're in a multifamily dwelling and you take for granted that your fire suppression is working. We have no way of knowing that because we don't have a way to close that circle. So I think the fire code picks up on it's kind of a maintenance code to the building code. It picks up on a lot of those loose ends, and I think it's part of our job to help keep those community members safe that are under the idea that they have these protections in place, and sometimes they don't because they just slip through the cracks.
Thank you just for providing that. I know you and I have talked extensively about that, and this council had that discussion, but I wanted to make sure that the general public, especially with this meeting being televised, had an opportunity to hear that and know that that's one of the things that we will be looking at this year. So thank you for taking the time to explain that, and I have no additional questions.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Chief. That was
Thank
a
you.
very fine report. The next presentation is the 2014 annual report for the Police Department as presented by Chief John Stressman.
Excuse me. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff. My name is John Stressman. I am the police chief for the city of Mason, and I'm proud to say that this is my 10th annual report for the city, which I just realized as I was going through my notes a little while ago. I don't want to take up too much of your time, especially following Chief Minshall's report. I feel a little bit humbled and outclassed again. So. I want to make a little note to the cover sheet. I did not spend all of my time in front of a camera this past year. This was my secretary's attempt to acknowledge the new employees that joined us in some officer activities on the street. So that's not me trying to get my brand out there at all. The first portion of the report is my introduction. I do note in here to jump ahead of you, Mayor Pro Tem, the challenges that we faced in 2014 that we're going to continue to face in 2015. First and foremost is officer retention. We are continuing to have issues with that. We hire officers as fast as they leave, it seems like. The trouble is that we have a long training period that we have to to follow in order to get them ready for the street to be working by themselves. One thing of note is not in here, is that there are a lot of other police departments now in the state of Michigan that have open vacancies that are actively recruiting. To paraphrase my good friend Dave Hall, the police chief in Meridian Township, who I spent 2 days with at a meeting at the Mullen Center last week, that it's frustrating when you go through the pre-employment process and you get ready to hire someone or give them a preconditional offer and find out someone else has snatched them up. And that's going on a lot now. So there is a lot of competition for good qualified candidates. So it's not hard to fill it's not easy to fill these vacancies anymore, to find someone that really fits the niche in an organization. And I have more bad news. We just had another officer announce that he's been given a preconditional officer with the city of Ann Arbor, and he anticipates his last day with the city is April 4th. So, it's getting to be a struggle to be competitive, and that's something that we're going to have to really look at hard this coming year and find out how we're going to resolve this issue. But we want to keep putting officers out there that are competent and are skilled and that can do a good, sound job for the residents of this community, which is what they deserve. The other issue that has been a growing, festering problem nationwide, as you know, when I bring this up, but I think is going to be even worse in 2015, and that is the citizens that are being victimized by financial fraud of one form or another. We don't have violent crime in Mason, but by golly, we've got a lot of people out there that are being ripped off on a regular basis through credit card fraud, mortgage fraud, some sort of bank fraud, something where they're being victimized remotely online by someone else or through a phone scam. And we're getting these reports all the time. So that's something that we're probably going to have to think about how we're going to change our tactics a little bit. Fortunately for us, we have a very good working relationship with the Michigan State Police, and they do a lot of the technology autopsies that we need for computers, cell phones, and those kinds of things. But this isn't going to get any lighter, and they've only got so many resources. We may have to invest in some kind of technology that our detective can use to decipher data from a cell phone, or maybe get an initial data from a laptop or a PC in order to find out if there is evidence in there. Once we find out and determine it is, then we can seize it and take it and hang on to it as long as it takes to get the evidence extrapolated from there. So those are two of probably the most serious issues that we've got facing us, that faced us in 2014, that aren't going to go away anytime soon. I've added our flow chart. As you see, we've included everybody by name. This is last year's, so there will be some names that aren't on here next year. Those include Jordan Murdoch, Scott Gadare. Fortunately, right now, those are the only two that are on here that aren't going to be on there next year that I can catch off the top of my head. Ethics and standards continue to be one of our priorities. I've included this year our department mission statement, which we've already had, but for some reason I've been remiss in reporting that or adding it to the annual report. What's of particular concern this year is the drastic increase in administrative reviews. It's hard to explain why, because there's no one given reason why they are, except there was one instance where a citizen made a number of complaints against one of our officers. He seemed to be stalking the officer. Had taken a real fascination with him. We put a stop to that pretty soon. It ended in a personal protection order hearing. Our city attorney, Mr. Hitt, defended the officer and represented the city's interest in that case, and the judge told him to cease and desist, and we haven't heard from him since. Detective Bureau notes, this is a good time to highlight a spectacular arrest that handled by Officer Detective Rob Bentinck and the FBI last Friday when embezzler was finally apprehended after a year-and-a-half investigation for multiple embezzling offenses, where she has been arraigned and is facing 30 years imprisonment and up to $1 million in fines and restitution to the bank that she embezzled the funds from. That's a long story, and how we came about being made aware of that case I can't discuss, because only information is being released is what was in the press releases, and it's restrained by the federal court indictments. So that's all. To paraphrase, what was his name? Forrest Gump. That's all I've got to say about that. In-service training. And again, we dealt with this last year. We were able to do a lot of consolidations with other agencies our size in Ingham County and do some joint trainings, in particular use of force issues. More specifically, the most predominant being firearms and taser and PPCT. That's turned out to be quite successful for us because we're getting a bigger bang for our buck. We train interagency-wise. We use their trainers, and they use ours. Just to make mention of one thing to show the fine quality of our training, the two officers that were involved in the Lansing Township shooting that were exonerated and justifying that shooting were trained in our program. And the rating or the evaluation of the training that they received was stellar by the prosecutor's office and the state police investigators. So we're on the right track, and this is the way that we protect the city's purses from unfortunate incidents. Also, too, the big issue that came across my attention this year was the decrease in MCOL's funds. The state dropped their contributions significantly. I don't know what they're going to be this year, but I was away for 2 days at the McMullen Center, and one of the presenters was Jim Harvey, the director of MCOLS, and they're talking about other means of funding, including putting MCOLS under the auspices funded by the general fund rather than whatever fund the state police are currently under, which may free up more money one way or another, and have other ways to increase revenues for MCOLS. But the reason that was cited because that caused all this reduction in funds is that, and I knew this, I've forgotten it, MCOLS is solely funded by revenues from traffic citations. In the last 15 years or 14 years since 2001, there were 4,000 less police officers in Michigan. That's 4,000 less police officers writing tickets. That's good news for a lot of people, but for us, that's been costing us in our training budget. Fortunately for us, you and the city administration sees to it that we have enough to get through annually, and so we do get, as you saw in this article, a lot of good quality training. Oh, and the picture on the back here, one sergeant strangling the other, that isn't coincidental. I saw that picture. I asked Eileen to put it on the front page as a transition of senior sergeants in the next year when Ed retires. They didn't think that was too funny, so we left it off. Firearms training, again, that's one of our high points of our training program. We do that quarterly. The increasing costs in ammunition is not helping us any, but we do share the costs on some of the equipment, targets, and those things with other agencies and the trainers. One thing that I want to point out, though, is that although this wasn't a 214, I participated in a night shoot last month where Robert Mentick was the trainer, and I was so impressed with that, I directed him to make a video of that training session, the next one they put up. So we're going to put that online for people to see just how intense our training program is. I mean, this was really something that I can't even begin to describe it, but it was just really a very effective training program. It's all about your reaction, your instincts, how you're going to, making a quick decision based on very limited information and trying to decipher that. And that's one of the things that law enforcement's come under criticism for this past year, that we're a bunch of jackbooted thugs that are only interested in shooting people before we ask questions. So this shows just how careful we are, how prudent we are in our training, and the type of reactions the officers are expected to have in a critical situation. And when it's made available, when it's done, I'll make it available for you all to see, so you can see it for yourself. But it might not be a bad idea if maybe this year, a couple of you, if you're interested, come out to one of our firearms trainings and see for yourself what's going on out there. It'd be well worth your time. Code enforcement. Code enforcement officer Duthie is doing another stellar job. He's right on top of things. He continues to work with the public, the people with nuisance code violations, to abate the nuisances voluntarily rather than citations. He has written a few citations this past year, but so far he's gotten a lot of cooperation from everybody. Now, a big change: committed patrol expenditure. This data is all compiled by Don Hansen. It's kind of similar to what he did for his project at the Michigan State University Staff and Command School. And what it does is it reflects there are two categories here that have some huge numbers. One is the dispatch calls for service by incident and the total numbers. The other one is the hour by day and day of week calls. Now, unfortunately, there's an anomaly here that has to do with the total numbers. And we went back to the 911 center where we got this data from, and they explained to us, yes, after some research, they found that those numbers aren't specifically accurate because some reflect multiple units dispatched to an incident as opposed to one city officer. So we had them calculate the data on calls for service again, and it came out to 4,910 as opposed to what was reported at 5,468. That's a big chunk of numbers. But they explain it has to do with the old Visionaire CAD software that they're using, and that's why they are doing as we did, only we dumped Visionaire altogether and went to the state reporting system. They're changing their CAD service and getting updated stuff so that their numbers are more accurate. Now, these numbers that follow in here are going to change slightly, and we're going to amend this, but it won't be a significant change. What we have done, though, is we've tried to, in this portion of the report, give you a better understanding rather than numbers of crimes, of actual crimes, not the reported stuff, but actual crimes. Doesn't tell you much about an officer's activity. What this does, if you look at the last portion of that, there's a committed time per shift chart. It's a donut-shaped chart which breaks down how many, the different categories of what the officers do, how many hours a day that one, and let me explain a little bit further. We field 1.9 officers on an average shift. I know that's not possible, but ideally it's to be 2. But it can't be that way because of the schedule. So it actually comes out to 1.9 officers per shift, and the actual working hours are 15.2 hours per shift, rather than the 16 that 2 officers spend. So this works around there, and this shows by these numbers that there are 13.6 hours of committed time. That's 13.6 hours out of 15.2 hours of committed time the officers are doing something they have to do other than out looking and checking buildings. Now, there is a 3-hour committed patrol in here, but that's not enough. If you've got 2 officers on a shift, you want them to spend at least half their time out there, at least 8 hours a night, patrolling the streets of Mason. There's 45 miles of streets in Mason that need to be covered, and at 15 miles an hour, that's 3 hours a night. That's not enough. Use of force, again, the numbers are self-explanatory. We have also the contributing factors in there. We've had an increase in firearms-related crimes this year, and some of the pictures of the guns that were seized are in Don's report for the use of force. We have staff highlights, 2 or 3 that are real significant are Don Hansen's graduation from the Michigan State University School of Staff and Command, Sergeant Ed Hughes' 40th anniversary, and Detective Mentink being named Employee of the Year. Everyone's real proud of those. Just so as you know, too, Ed is retiring in September after 40 years of successful law enforcement. We're going to hate to see him go. But as I told his daughter the other day, he figures that he's brought me along far enough and I'm ready to go out on my own. So he's off to the races. He has plans. I'm not to divulge them, though. Those are his to share later on. Staff services report. This itemizes all the responsibilities of the staff. There's a highlight in here on a sealed bid bike auction that Sandy held this year that cleaned out our entire inventory of seized bicycles. And we're going to continue that on with other property that we have that needs to be removed from our possession. Performance surveys, again, they seem to be a pretty big hit. We don't have all the elaborate commentary in here, but Eileen did add some of the comments, both negative and positive. We want to give everybody the understanding that we're not hiding anything and we're not going to shy away from criticism. Now, the Mason Capital Area Prescription Drug Task Force, this is probably my proudest achievement this year, I think, because we set up a competition. Has anybody seen our PSA, the Task Force PSA on Channel 10? No? Well, that's disappointing. Marty, you have. Thank you very much. Good, isn't it? We had a competition at the high school. Media for a video, a poster, and a couple other items, artwork, a logo. The video competition was won by an exchange student from Holland, Adele. I can't pronounce her last name. She happened to be Ingrid Nova's foreign exchange student who was residing with her. Anyhow, through the kind contribution of the Mason Area Community Fund, some local drug dealers that contributed to our fund, and Channel 10 WILX matched our money, and we put on 2 months of prime time PSA announcements that we wouldn't have gotten just having thrown it out there and run it as a public service announcement. And the results have been tremendous. It has accomplished exactly every goal we set this past year by the task force to get the message out to every interested group that we targeted. So I'm very proud of that. I just spent a little while Saturday afternoon with the Community Fund Board, and they're deciding whether to give us any more money. And WILX, I'm told, will match it, and I think the drug dealers will match it, and we're going to run this again for maybe 2 or 3 months. Technology improvements for 2014. We did have to break down and buy new MDCs. That was done through our CIP account with MIS. We bought, rather than buy tough books, so we were convinced that that was wasting money because those are meant for military grade service. We bought the lesser semi-tough books They saved us about $3,000 a piece for them on that. We got them in. The only problem was we ran into an issue where our tough books were so fast, they were faster than the servers that were receiving the transmissions and couldn't send it back, so the tough book would shut down. That's been fixed. Just an odd anomaly that we faced. Sex offender registry by Officer Chick. The child car seat inspections. We're going to start having a day twice a year now where we're going to associate ourselves with another event and have our 2 car seat inspectors at those events to give away and display and show people how to put the car seats in the cars. We cut down on the kind of information we put in our officers volunteering in the community with very limited information on there. There were no motor vehicle pursuits this year. We're required by policy to report that, any and all pursuits. We're also required to, by ordinance, to publish annual traffic safety report. That information is there. Accidents were down, but again, there's no rhyme or reason. We just don't have many accidents in Mason, which is a good thing. We also have here the cases submitted to the Michigan State Police Lab, and finally, the number of arrests we were made at our hands through investigations this past year. That doesn't include minor issues. We make arrests for somebody else. These are basically generated here. Again, it took a lot longer than I thought I was going to, and I apologize for that, but I do. Like I said, this is my 10th attempt at this, and I'm pretty pleased with how things go, and I'm particularly proud of the department and the officers, and in spite of the difficulties we're having with getting people out on the street, we are getting them out on the street. They're doing it without complaining, and they're doing a bang-up job, and I'm particularly proud of all of them for that. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions for the Chief? Mayor Pro Tem.
I thought I covered it all.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. And thank you, Chief. Congratulations on your 10th report. Fine job, and please give our thanks to the officers for the fine work that they do for the community. I just wanted to ask you to briefly comment. I know you and I have talked about this before, but the body cameras that I was pleased to see in the report that the department purchased those in December, and I just wanted to ask you maybe to expound publicly on how you were able to procure those and why you felt that they were important at this juncture.
Well, how we were able to procure those was a gentleman that resides in Mason that was dispensing pharmaceuticals without a license, and he had a large quantity of opioids in a bag along with bundles of cash. Through the forfeiture process, they wound up paying for our body cams. Now, that's the lighter side of it, but that's what we use with drug forfeiture money. That's what that money's there for, and rather than ask for more funds to purchase these, we did that. We have purchased, or we've ordered 13. That's enough for everybody, excluding me in the department, including the code enforcement officer, to have one of their own assigned to them. These cameras are very small. They look a little bit of a square on your shirt, and they're noticeable. We're not hiding anything. The officers are going to have stipulated times and incidents where they use these. Anytime they are taking a law enforcement action, or they're being confronted with something, or they're about to speak with someone or take some kind of action, that has to come on and be recorded through the entire incident. Now, they will only hold about 4 hours worth of data, so a couple of times during the shift, an officer may have to go back in and download it. And these don't download remotely like the cars do. These have an anchor. I can't think of the term I'm looking for. But anyway, it's a base that you put it in, and it automatically downloads what's in that camera into our server. All of our video now is stored in one server. The cars, the interview rooms, and now the body cams are all an L3 server inside of our facility. And that was intentional. So we could make sure that everything was done the same. We saved that data the same way we do all the time. It was user-friendly for their officers. They didn't have to figure out another way of doing business. And that we can add it to our 3 years' worth of storage. We use backup disks to make sure that we keep that data long enough in case there's a lawsuit or an appeal, the criminal case is appealed and goes to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court. We have a draft policy that's going to be published. The officers are going to be instructed on how to use the camera, when and where and how to use it. There are privacy issues, but this has all been hashed out by the policy group that I belong to, where I spent the 2 days last week, Law Enforcement Action Forum, and it's all done with the legal counsel's oversight. So we're pretty comfortable that this is going to cover all the bases for us. Does that answer the? Okay.
It does. Thank you so much.
And just so you know, we've been working on this for 4 or 5 years. I think Mr. Colburn and I have talked about this repeatedly. What's the need? And we always waited to make sure that we had something compatible to what we got already, so we didn't have to buy unnecessary support hardware. And this works out pretty well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Comprehensive report. Both the reports were very informative this year, as usual. That brings us to a public hearing to receive any public comments for the apportionment for Special Assessment Project 2015-1. Mr. Colburn.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council members. This is in regard to and tied to the Maple Street project. We are, and you had authorized expenditures of over $1.4 million in a bid awarded to Reith Riley, and it's tied to 2 budget years this year and the upcoming year in regard to our streets program. There are a number of streets in which there's a number of sidewalk portions, flags along Maple Street and such, and you'll see the addresses listed on here as to how it's apportioned by address, by name, by parcel number, and by the estimated amount. And so we have that split out also in regard to a cost to the taxpayer, the parcel owner, and the cost to the city. Typically and generally we say it's a 50-50 split. There's some nuances to that depending on if somebody lives on a corner or they want an extended width driveway, things of that nature. But it's spelled out, again, by parcel number, by name, by address, and the estimated amounts. And we work with our contractor and engineer in terms of getting all those numbers to the finance department. That being said, it's our intent to build the street and the sidewalk this summer. Most of this is along Maple Street, as you can see these addresses. And if you have any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Colburn?
I have one right off the top. As I'm looking at Exhibit A. Yeah, it's on. I'm just curious, as I look down and I see the very first one is listed at 59 linear feet, and the total cost on that is $1,248.44, and you come down 2 from there, 49 linear feet, that's $1,300. Why would lesser linear feet be more money?
Without looking at the field inspection, I can't tell you that.
Well, then you have, then you get down even further. There's another 59 linear feet that's $1,500.
That one spells out there's a portion that's 5 foot wide and 6 inches deep. And the sidewalk, it's a different size flag. If there's, as an example, if these numbers are off by more than 10%, then we have to, we can't make an adjustment on that, meaning we have to do estimates that are within that 10%. And that's what these are in terms of as hard numbers as they can come up with based on the bids that we have and the field inspections that have been walked by staff as well as our engineering firm.
Mr. Colburn, when I look at those lines in question, I then reference the headers, and I see some descriptors. The 59 linear feet is a 5-foot by 4-inch concrete entirely. The 49 linear feet is 49 of 5-foot by 4-inch concrete and 12 feet of 5-foot by 6-inch concrete. I believe that would account for not knowing the breakdown of which unit was
right.
how many.
As I mentioned, some of these are different sized flags.
Yeah, different thicknesses, which accounts for more concrete volume. Are there any other questions for Mr. Colburn? At this point, I will open the public hearing to receive any comment regarding the apportionment for the special assessment project. Is there anybody that wishes to comment on the special assessment apportionment? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem?
Before we proceed with action, I just wanted to inquire, do we need to have Mr. Colburn's comments included under the public hearing portion? I know I know that sometimes there's discussion about having the introduction from the administrator actually included with the formal public hearing. Do we need to do anything to rectify that?
I don't think we need to do anything formal to rectify it. I don't disagree with you. The attorneys like that fit into the public hearing just as so it's a matter of record, but I don't know that any action has to be taken. Just maybe the minutes reflect.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we consider Special Assessment Resolution Number 5, Project 2015-1, as having been read.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to have the special assessment resolution project 2015-1 considered as being read. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
How about discussion? Can I take a breath to get to discussion?
If you would
please?
address the chair, I will give you the floor.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering,
Councilmember
as the staff agenda report points out, that the resolution lists 4 3/4% interest, and with the checking with the banks, 3 3/4% is the current rate we can borrow money. So any changes that we have to make would be made into the resolution would have to be amended before it's approved. So prior to having it read and going through it the long way around, it would probably be easier and cleaner to amend the resolution before it's considered read and then approved after that.
Is that a motion of some kind?
Well, you already have. I'm sorry, you already have a motion on the floor, so.
That's what I meant, yeah. Mr. Colburn, could you explain the resolution listing the 4.75% when the current interest rate would appear to be 3.75? Is there a purpose for that?
Yes. In our process, there are certain administrative coverages that you cover in there in terms of costs, everything from your legal reviews and such. Also, I believe it's referenced in your charter, Chapter 11, in terms of the 1% addition.
Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I move to amend the motion to consider it read by inserting the interest rate percentage at 3 3/4%, consistent with the SAR recommendation.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to amend the resolution to adjust the interest rate of 4.75 to 3.75. Is there any discussion?
So we're not going to add the 1% that calls for by the charter?
It appears not with that, if that amendment is passed.
Then we're clearly not in conformity with our charter.
Any other discussion? All those in... Mayor Pro Tem.
Maybe just to get some clarity then. So on one hand, the current interest rate is 3 3/4, but based on our charter, we have to go with the 4 3/4. How do we rectify the two? I don't know if Eric was wanting to contribute to the discussion or anything.
That's the way that when we've typically financed these projects, anytime, whether it's bonding, whether it's loans, however we go about it, you'd get the interest rate and 1% is added on per Chapter 11 in the charter. I haven't seen us actually not put the 1% on, but that's why that clause is there. If you don't want the 1% on there, the banks that's what we can finance it for is 3.75. The charter says plus 1%. Would it be violation necessarily? It says we add 1% in the charter. I haven't seen us not do that in any of the special assessments that I've seen since I've been here. But that, again, that's why that clause is there. If you wanted something other than what we can get it for plus 1%, then this is what the discussion would be, I guess, at this point.
It would seem that without having an attorney present to make a small legal opinion on that the charter is simply providing for the city for the cost of doing business and stipulating that it's 1%, give or take. And that explains to me why the SAR is worded the way it is.
Mr. Mayor, do we have a second on this amendment?
We do. Is there any further discussion on the proposed amendment? All those in favor of the proposed amendment to modify the 4.75 to 3.75 signify by saying aye. All those opposed? No. The amendment is defeated, 6-0. Taking us back to the main motion, is there further discussion on the motion to consider the resolution as being read? Do you have all those in favor of the resolution being considered as being read signify by saying aye? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Do you have one to introduce?
Yes, I do. City of Mason, 2015 Sidewalk Improvements Special Assessment Resolution Number 5, Project 2015-1, introduced by Ferris, second by Brown.
Is there any discussion on the resolution? All those in favor of Resolution 2015-1 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The resolution passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, including the approval of minutes, regular council bills, receiving and placing on file the 2014 annual report from the Mason Fire Department, the 2014 annual report from the Mason Police Department, and a motion for the street closure request for the annual Camino of St. James 8K run.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Drosha.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Clark.
As had it been broken out individually for the street closure requests, I would have voted no on that, but once again, I would have been a lone vote, so I will just publicly express my concerns about cutting the city in half on that particular day, because I still get complaints from people that are trying to get to church and can't get from one side of town to the other. And once again, would ask that for next year that they consider a scenic view that doesn't dissect the city.
I'm sure Mr. Mumby has so noted that. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes 6-0. Regular business, resolution 2015-13, support of proposal 1 for the May 5th, 2015 special election. Mr. Colburn.
Honorable Mayor and Council members, the Michigan Municipal League, as you know, for years has been lobbying on behalf of the cities, specifically in terms of trying to find the appropriate methods, and both political and, of course, tied to the financial, of how to fund streets and roads, bridges, and other needs within the municipal government. This particular last year, during the lame duck, they were able to put together a number of different bills. And in essence, you heard the presentation this evening by an MDOT staff member who gave you an overview. Also, I provided the overview from Michigan Municipal League last week, or 2 weeks ago. But in essence, in terms of what I would call very significant legislation that could make a difference in regard to municipal revenues. We've seen revenues go down from the state, both statutory and constitutional revenue sharing for many, many years. And in recent years, it's starting to climb up, but it's still a long ways away from where it was at. And just the erosion in terms of cost of living and inflationary factors. We've also seen the property taxes go down for a number of years, and generally speaking, they're flat this year. So it's the most significant means that I've seen from the state legislature to try to eradicate the erosion of public funds that are going to municipalities. So for that reason, Michigan Municipal League has asked all their partners within the organization to consider publicly supporting this particular legislation. As you know, it goes through the legislation. It goes to election in May for the people to determine that by vote. And so that's what we bring to you tonight, is that discussion and a draft resolution that in essence states that for the May 5th ballot proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Any questions for Mr. Colburn? This was brought forward tonight as a request from the last council meeting that we consider it. As Mr. Colburn said, it was a request from Michigan Municipal League for us to, if you will, pledge our support to their efforts to pass this. It doesn't in any way indicate that the council would be approving or passing anything tonight regarding this.
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to consider Resolution 2015-13 as having been read.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to have resolution number 2015-13 being as considered read. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Do you have one to introduce?
Yes, I do. City Council Resolution Number 2015-13, a resolution in support of Proposal 1 for May 5th, 2015 special election. Introduced by Brown, second by Mulvaney.
Is there any discussion on the resolution?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Clark.
I'm in good conscience can't support this resolution. I think that as you read through this and listen to Mr. Balmas as he spoke, if you listen to the TV ads and those that are trying to peddle this thing, try to slough it off as a real simple 1% increase in the sales tax that's going to generate money for roads. But as you read through it, you find that there's a heck of a lot more costs to the residents of the state than what they've been telling us about. The increase in the user fee for gas, the change in the depreciation change, that's huge. And the things that they don't consider, they say all the right things about. Well, we're going to get the big semi trucks. We're going to charge them $600 more, whatever that amount was, and just think that they're going to pass that on, and those companies are just going to eat it, and the cost of doing business isn't going to go up and be passed on to the consumer. So that's another pile onto the consumer. And if the other thing that it's all smoke and mirrors. Because it's peddled as a 1% sales tax increase for fixtures of roads. Well, you get into it and find out that no, it's not just roads. We're paying down the STF debt. That doesn't fix any roads. That pays down debt. We're paying for the recreation improvement. There's a $27.2 million increase to the Comprehensive Transportation Fund, which you already pay a millage to CATA and those kinds of things. So I can't support this legislation. And then with the legislature sitting in Lansing and looking down and saying, well, it's this or nothing because we don't have a backup plan. I think that they're trying to hold everybody's feet to the fire and coerce us into supporting something that is just some bad legislation. Is going to cost people more than it's like Prop A. So I can't support this resolution.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Grosha.
In a somewhat similar vein, I feel this is the greatest convolution I've seen since Proposal A, and I also cannot support it. Each of these individual things, the municipalities, education, roads, are all great things to support, but to twist them all into one knot, I can't support that.
Councilmember Mulvaney.
I would also not be in support of this. I appreciate the fact the resolution is before us and the excellent information that Mr. Colburn has provided with us. But I feel it's so complex that anybody voting, unless they spend a lot of time of it on it, won't understand it. It seems like every lobbyist in the state must have got their little niche into it, including improving the marinas of the DNR, bicycle trails, and almost everything except fixing roads. I'm afraid that I will have to vote no and expect that our legislators get back to work again with something that's reasonable.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very grateful for the comments of my colleagues on the council tonight, and also the presentation that we've had an opportunity to listen to. I realize that we all have differing opinions on this particular proposal, and I'm grateful that we've even had an opportunity to have a public debate this evening on the subject. That being said, I had a few comments that I wanted to share this evening regarding the proposal. I've spent some time thinking about it and doing some research as well. And preparing for tonight's meeting, I actually did some reflection and thought about a lot of the family road trips that I took growing up as a kid. And I can remember going across the state, going to other parts of the country, and whenever we were coming back home, we were really anxious to get home. And there were two things that will always welcome me back to the state of Michigan. The first was the Welcome to Michigan sign, which always gave me a sense of great pride. But as soon as you crossed the state line, you'd end up hitting a pothole. And one of my relatives would always quip and say, well, I guess we're back in Michigan now. So road funding and our road infrastructure has always been an issue in this state. That being said, just as our roads are crumbling, so is our funding mechanism for paying for the roads. And under the current system, when you go to the gas station to fill up your car, only half of the taxes that you're paying actually go to roads. Currently, the other half go to our schools and to our local government and to other means. And so the system is currently somewhat broken, and we cannot continue along the same stream and even maintain the roads that we currently have. And so, as has been indicated in the presentation and some of the literature that's out there, the state will need an additional $1.2 billion in revenue in order to keep pace with repairing and maintaining the roads. Now, I agree that this particular proposal is very complex, it's very convoluted, and some might say it's even crazy. But I think it is workable. And I say that because the proposed plan essentially, even though there are a lot of different pieces, we're essentially talking about three main components. The first is we're repairing the broken sales tax formula on our gas tax and replacing it with a new formula that is dedicated specifically to transportation and roads. And so no longer will your taxes be diverted when you fill up at the pump. It'll go strictly to roads and to transit. But in order to do that, you're essentially getting rid of the local funding. And so there's a hole there. And so the second thing that the proposal does is that it makes our schools and our local governments whole by increasing that sales tax by 1 penny. And then the last part is that the sales tax is regressive and impacts a lot of families in a negative way. And so in order to offset that, we also have an extension of the earned income tax credit, which will help our lower income families. And so the net impact of that is not only $1.25 billion for roads and bridges, but I think what's most important when you look at a local perspective is that you would have $300 million for schools and an additional $94 million for local government via state constitutional revenue sharing. And this, as Mr. Bomas pointed out, is about a 60% increase over the long term. And then there's $260 million in tax relief. So even though there's a sales tax increase, many residents would actually see that come back with the tax relief that is part of the package. I realize that it's easy to be skeptical of this plan because there's so much in it. But I also think it's also difficult to raise taxes even for road improvements. But as I look through it, I think it's very necessary. And that's why the Michigan Municipal League is supporting it. That's why they've encouraged municipal governments all over the state to support this proposal. And tonight our council has the ability to join the effort and help our residents to understand what's in the proposal and why it's actually important. Just in closing, I think it's unfortunate that the state that put our nation on wheels has some of the worst roads in the country. And it's been said that there is no plan B. I watched this go through the legislative process from my work in the budget office, from watching the lame duck session. The governor called for this 2 years ago, and we didn't get anything until the very end of last year's session. If this doesn't go through, what I and several other individuals fear is that we'll get something at the end of 2016, at the end of lame duck, that will be worse than what we currently have, that won't make local governments whole, that won't make schools whole, that won't help out families with the tax relief. And so, yes, our legislator could have come up with a much better proposal, but I don't think that we ought to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so, while I respect my colleagues' opinions, I still urge you to support the resolution, and I urge our residents to support Proposal 1 because it's well past time that we actually do something to fix our roads and not let them continue to crumble. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Comments?
In response, Proposal A was supposed to help fund our schools, and it has failed. The state giveth, and the state taketh away. So I don't believe that the money will actually go to the schools or to the municipalities. I think it's a diabolical plan, actually.
Any other comments? I have a number of things to comment on. For starters, I recognize that the Michigan Municipal League devotes a lot of resources to analyzing propositions proposals such as this, and generally their recommendation and mine are very similar. However, the more I looked into this and the more I listened to some people that voiced their concerns to me, it goes back to the original gas tax in 1997 that was voted into law specifically to maintain our state's roadways, in conjunction with Act 51, of course. So there's no other way to put it nicely, but it seems that we've been paying a tax since 1997 and in good faith expecting a service in return that we apparently have not received because of the condition of our roads today. And it's interesting to note that this new solution has 11 other bills that have already been passed, waiting to go into effect immediately upon a successful passage of Proposal 1. When that happens, the number that's most commonly used is $1.2 billion will be dedicated to the state's roadways, but the first $700 million will be slivered off and sent in different directions, as has already been mentioned. So just doing the math again, if all of that was added up, we would have $1.9 billion, of which we're getting 1.2 or slightly less than two-thirds of a proposal that's being presented to solve our state roadway situation. I had the opportunity last Thursday, I believe it was, to participate in a conference call with Governor Snyder as he discussed Proposal 1, and he said at one point that all good plans have a Plan B, and that later in the call that there is no Plan B for if this proposal fails. So again, I would personally task the legislature to take a look at this and continue to strive for a way to deliver the service for which we've already been taxed for. Also, the question was raised by another community leader on the conference call about adjusting the Act 51 ratio of how state, county, and local municipalities receive their revenue sharing through the Act 51. And the governor said that he did not want to open that up at this time. He just wanted to pass the proposal, and then we could take a look at it later. And that seemed kind of ironic to me that we could devote the time and energy to prepare the proposal, but yet not include something that's such an integral component of the road funding process into maybe being readjusted. Lastly, the last 2% of the gas tax that was enacted goes solely to the roads, and so that would seem to be, again, in contradiction to a proposal that only roughly slightly less than two-thirds of the revenue go towards the roads, that it couldn't simply have been presented as what it's being billed to be, a road funding mechanism where 100% of the revenue from it was applied towards the roads. So with all of those analysis that I've done, I, too, in good conscience, cannot support a resolution supporting Proposal 1 in May. Any other discussion? All those in favor of Resolution 2015-13, support of Proposal 1 for May 5th special election, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. No. I'm not, might have been 3-3.
Ferris and Brown support.
Okay. Resolution fails 4-2. Next item is Resolution 2015-14. Resolution authorizing the issuance and delegating the sale of City of Mason 2015 refunding bonds. Mr. Colburn, would you comment on that for us?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. At the last meeting, referenced how going back to the bonds for the City Hall, that we were able to acquire those through the federal government with a program they called BABS, Buy American Bonds. And it was a guarantee from the federal government and the Recovery Act that they would pay 35% of the interest. And what staff has found is that over time, especially this last year, the federal government started to back off on the percentage that they were paying. In essence, not fulfilling the obligation under the original program. As that continued to change, Mr. Smith and I sat down and talked and discussed the possibilities, and then discussed it with our financial planner, Mr. Traciak. In terms, then got our bond counsel involved, Troon and Mike Greshens. And we discussed at what point do we take a look at the interest rates. So they started looking at the interest rates and where they're at now versus where they were at 5 years ago, and identified that we could save some money because the rates have gone down. The other issue is that they believe that around the third quarter of this year that the feds will probably start raising the interest rates. So we saw a window of opportunity to bring to you the possibility of rebonding. As a matter of fact, this went through the building authority. Actually, the way it's set up, the building authority had the legal authority to go ahead and proceed forward. But as it discussed and brought to you at the last meeting was that I think it's just, in terms of transparency, more aware of what's going on, as well as the opportunity to take a look at the project and the program and consider the rebonding. We have with us tonight Friedrich Heidelman, who is our bond counsel. He works with Mike Greshens as an associate with him, and can speak a little bit more to the overall bonding program.
Well, thank you, Administrator Colburn, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me. As Administrator Colburn said, the purpose of this refinancing is to call and defease the building authority's 2010 bonds that were used to build the City Hall. Administrator Colburn went over a few of the reasons why. I will also add that under the original bonding obligation of the building authority, the city pledged its limited tax power to those bonds by way of a contract. So the city building authority issued the bonds, and then by way of contract, it's actually a unique feature under Michigan law, the city pledged its taxing power to repay those bonds to repay the debt service to the building authority so that the building authority can make debt service payments. Because that process isn't quite recognized on the municipal bond investor level nationwide, there is kind of in the investor community this penalty that's perceived on those types of bonds, which are perceived as being revenue bonds like you'd have for a special assessment district. So when we were looking at this, the opportunity arose to replace those bonds where the city pledges its limited tax power through a contract of lease to have a more direct relationship where the city is itself responsible for the debt service payment under the bond. And in the municipal bond investor world, this would be viewed as sort of a stronger repayment capacity. And so for that reason, there's also belief that this will result in savings for the city, which I will add, because it's a limited tax pledge, would be to the general fund of the city. Now, in the resolution you have before you, it's actually a pretty broad resolution as these things go. In fact, you will note that on page 6, under paragraph 17, there are actually only really two limiting items in terms of the authority that we're going to operate under to approve this bond issue, and that is you receive the recommendation of your financial advisor and that the net present value savings of the refinancing will be 1% or greater. That's pretty broad, and the reason is we don't really know what's going to happen at pricing. Right now we're at the issuance stage of authorizing. We're not at the stage of pricing the bonds, and we're certainly not at the stage of closing. Those are going to happen further on down the road. We expect pricing to occur on April 23rd, and that's actually when we're going to know what the interest rate is and actually what the size of the bond issue is going to be. The way this works is that once you receive pricing information from the underwriter, which is the initial purchaser of the bonds, the underwriter will present an offer, and part of that offer will probably include a premium, which will be a sort of upfront additional payment based on the quality of the bonds, and that will then be used to pay down debt service. So the reason why this is so open-ended is because a lot can happen between now and the time we price. And so for that reason, this is structured as two requirements. Number one, you have to save at least 1% in terms of your debt service payments. And number two, you receive the recommendation of your financial advisor. And if you receive that recommendation of your financial advisor on the day after pricing, the city administrator will, based on that recommendation, enter into a bond purchase agreement with the underwriter to purchase the bonds in between that time and closing, which is going to be on May 7th is what we have as the tentative closing date. The city administration is going to work to finalize the bond issue with us, get all the closing documents prepared to get everything set. So with that, unless you have any further questions, the only thing I'd ask you to do is that if you vote on this, that it be done by roll call vote.
Any questions? Mr. Heidman, I have one.
Sure.
Your last statement. What is your significance in having the roll call vote versus the standard vote?
It makes it easier for us. I'm going to record the roll call vote and write it down on the resolution so that we have it for our records.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Clark.
In 2010, we released bonds that were worth $4.1 million, right? And
I have to go back and check the building authority.
That's what they tell me in the report here. And we're going to issue now 4.2?
Good question. That is the not to exceed amount. Most likely it's going to be less than that. Again, the reason that number is so high is to allow flexibility in pricing, because there is a chance that with the higher par amount, based on what Fifth Third can sell at the time, we may be able to get lower interest rates with the higher par amount, or maybe higher interest rates with the lower par amount. It's to provide flexibility, and that was based on the recommendation of your financial advisor.
So to date, how far down have we paid this bill?
It's at about, I think, between 3.7, 3.8 million.
Yeah, I think outstanding right now is about 3.8.
So we're actually, if we've paid down, and I guess I'm having a hard time grasping. I'm not a numbers guy, so we've paid down to. We have a balance of 3.7, 3.8, and we're going to issue 4.2. So are we going backwards here?
No. In fact, again, what I just said with the resolution, there is a requirement that you have a minimum 1% present value savings. So if we think about a bond issue and debt service over the life of that bond issue, you could have a higher par amount with lower interest rates, and you could still be paying less over time than you would if you had a lower par amount with higher interest rates.
Mr. Colburn, we had a previous presentation that pretty much gave us some hard numbers of what our savings would be realized by proceeding with this plan.
Right. It was six figures. It's, as I said, when you get to the actual market, they can't give you an exact number till that day, literally. But it's six-figure savings in terms of the 1%. And you're right, it's approximately it's a 3.75 in that range of what is still owed. So then it would be a bare minimum of 1% and then savings of that amount.
And potentially more.
Right. So under this resolution, the city administrator cannot accept the bond purchase agreement presented by the underwriter if the proposal contains something that's less than a 1% net present value savings for the refinancing. So unless there's a present value savings, just based on the authority that's in this resolution, the refinancing cannot proceed.
So there's a built-in fail-safe, in other
Yes.
words, that on that particular day that these bonds are purchased, if in fact there's less than 1% savings to be realized by the city, then it cannot proceed.
Correct.
Then in the resolution, Councilmember Clark's point is well taken. There's a ceiling for more than our outstanding principal was on the date we purchased the bonds in 2010. Is there any particular reason, Mr. Colburn, that that's worded that way? Is there a requirement for?
No, we can tighten it up. What your financial planner had expressed to you, though, was to give a little bit of flexibility in terms of the range that they can basically work within to get a good value.
Okay. Well, it would seem like it's really just a arbitrary ceiling when the real factor is the fail-safe of the minimum 1% savings.
Well, I wouldn't say it's arbitrary, and I don't want to speak to this too much because I'm a lawyer, not a financial advisor, and this number was picked by your financial advisor.
Maybe arbitrary wasn't the right word, but similar.
So rest assured that your financial advisor picked this number for a reason.
Okay. That's why we have financial advisors. Are there any other questions for Mr. Heidemann? Well, thank you for that enlightening description.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Grosha.
I'd like to move that we consider Resolution 2015-14 as read.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to consider Resolution 2015-14 as being read. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion being considered as read signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Do you have one? Motion passes 6-0. Now do you have one to introduce?
Yes, I do. City Council Resolution Number 2015-14, authorizing the issuance and delegating the sale of City of Mason 2015 refunding bonds, introduced by Brown, second by Drosha.
Is there any discussion on the resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
As I believe it's a point of personal privilege, I would ask that this vote be taken as a roll call vote as indicated in our previous discussion.
Everybody okay with that? Any other discussion? All those in favor of the resolution? Wait. Yes.
Roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Aye.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Drosha.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Mulvaney.
Yes.
Mayor Waltz.
Yes.
Passes.
Item D is a motion to assign 1% the unassigned fund balance for grant matching. Mr. Colburn. Thank you. Inadvertently, a check mark appeared next to C already. I didn't put it there. Item C, Resolution 2015-15. That's got a nice ring to it. Authorizing a request be forwarded to the Ingham County Board of Commissioners to initiate the process of the purchase of Rayner Park by the City of Mason. Mr. Colburn.
Honorable Mayor and council members, back in 2009, Ingham County had announced that it had intentions of closing Rayner Park, literally locking the gate and walking away and letting things move on due to the costs at that time. As you know, that was right in the throes of a lot of the changes that were going on within the economy and the recession. There was quite a discussion, and after it came to be that the county was not going to change its mind I was directed to go and negotiate a deal with Ingham County. What was approved by City Council was a 6-year lease with option to purchase, and that was basically a 1-year lease per year. And in 2016, that is the year basically that agreement comes up. Now, having spoken with Ingham County Parks Department and then their administration in terms of the timing, they couldn't answer the question as to whether or not and when they would provide the boundary survey. And the boundary survey is the legal, basically what would be put together on the legal quitclaim deed in terms of what property or what the size of the parcel would be and what the boundaries are. It's approximately 60 acres. Speaking with them, they didn't know whether or not they could accomplish that this summer or because of budget issues wait until next year. However, they happen to be working on their budget right now as we speak for 2016. So whether they accomplish it in summer 2015 or 16, I don't know. That's ultimately up to them. But what they're telling me is that we have to know, that Ingham County has to know what the intent of the city is prior to them utilizing public funds to go do the boundary survey. So not knowing whether or not they'll get it done in 2015 or minimally get the request to them in time to be inclusive in the 2016 budget, that's why this is brought to you at this time. Now, we're almost 5 years. This June, I believe, will be 5 years. We'll be through the lease purchase. From my perspective, we've been successful not only in maintaining the facilities with the help, of course, with some volunteers as well as city staff, but also that there's been a lot of additional benefits in terms of the improvements done by the volunteers, their investments, and that's inclusive of the Friends of the Rayner Park and others. And they've done improvements such as the new asphalt on the basketball court and several bridges. As a matter of fact, they're talking to me about another bridge and maybe a couple of handicap parking spots. They've helped us with equipment in terms of the aeration system in the ponds they've been there for. And, of course, cleaning up twice a year. Rotary has built the stage out there. There's just been a lot of improvements, such as the ball fields by the Little League, and they're talking about the possibility in the next couple of years of doing another ball field. They're hopeful anyhow and want to talk to the city once they're financially prepared. So in terms of timing, it comes down to budgets, Ingham County's budget, and as explained before, this would be to start the clock. Again, I can't tell you when they would complete that boundary survey, but obviously in accordance to the agreement, it should be no later than 2016.
Thank you, Mr. Coburn. Are there any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious if the city has any sort of tabulation regarding the amount of funds both the city and other nonprofit entities have invested in Rayner Park since we've started the lease agreement. I think that would be helpful if we did have something like that.
I think we could put something like that together. We have been tracking stuff typically annually, but we haven't done anything cumulative. But that could certainly be put together for a future time.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Mulvaney.
I didn't realize until right now, listening to Mr. Colburn about the survey, and so it is somewhat puzzling to me that right now we don't know what the Rayner Park is per se. And so when you send the survey out there, well, half the woodlot could disappear. Yeah, I'd like your reaction to that.
There was actually, you may recall, a move by, at that time, County Commissioner Grebner to remove the woods out of the discussion, and this is prior to the final agreement made 5 years ago. The resolution passed by City Council and forwarded to the Ingham County was for 59.9 acres. So we addressed that, and Mr. Grebner is no longer on the commission. That being said, there's actually about 62 acres out there. And the discussion at the time was that the sugar bush be cut off and given to the school district. So just to give you a heads up of where that extra little bit comes from is the sugar bush. And I think everybody at that time agreed that that was the best use, since that's all tied to their programs with the school district. What we do know, generally speaking, is that it follows the line on the east side of the fairgrounds to the south side along Kip Road, to the north side along Ash Street, and on the west side along the subdivisions and the high school.
Are there any other questions? At this point, I would entertain a motion to consider resolution as read.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Grosha.
I move that we consider Resolution 2015-15 as read.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to consider resolution 2015-15 as being considered read. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Do you have one to introduce?
Yes, I do. City Council Resolution Number 2015-15, a resolution authorizing a request be forwarded to the Ingham County Board of Commissioners to initiate the process of the purchase of Rayner Park by the City of Mason. Introduced by Brown, second by Drosha.
Is there any discussion on the resolution? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Resolution passes 6-0. Now we are at item D, officially. Motion to assign 1% of unassigned fund balances for grant matching. Mr. Colburn.
Honorable Mayor and Council members, this is a policy that the City Council had requested staff to follow. This would be the second year, and we bring this forward to you. One thing that we do point out is that basically by doing so, then that 1% is reserved in the general fund. I'm sorry, assigned is the proper term with the auditors. But basically it's set aside specifically for that utilization.
Are there any questions for Mr. Colburn? Mayor Pro Tem.
Lost my page. I move to assign 1%, or $21,971 of the audited, unassigned fund balance for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2014, to be used for grant matching purposes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to assign the 1%. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item E, a motion to accept the fire services contract between the City of Mason and the Township of Aurelius. Mr. Colburn.
Honorable Mayor and Council members, Fire Chief Minchell and I met with the supervisors of both Aurelius and Vevay. And we do this every year, but every third year we update the contract itself. And on this note, the recommendation is to continue with the extension of the fire protection services with those townships. It is not inclusive of Aladdin Township. As you know, we subcontract out to Delhi. And that particular agreement, which you saw in front of you, I believe it was in January. So at this point, we are recommending the approval of both contracts with the two townships.
Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Chief Minshaw, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, just real quickly. I didn't prepare the documents, reading them on my phone, actually. Just to note, the signatures on for Aurelius, Shelley Haviland is not the clerk. Tracy Ayers is the clerk at Aurelius. And when you get to the next item, Vevay contract, which is pretty much verbatim except you replace Vevay. For Aurelius, the signature, Gary Howe is not the supervisor anymore, so that will have to be changed to Jesse Ramey, I believe.
Do you have the correct spelling of Tracy? Just off the top of your head.
Did they actually take action on Mr. Howe?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh,
Tracy Ayers, Tracyayres.
That's what I thought. I wasn't sure. Jesse Ramey is Jesseramy.
That's correct.
When the time comes.
That's all.
Thank you, Chief, for that observation. Are there any questions for Mr. Colburn? Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
I move to accept the fire services contract between the City of Mason and the Township of Aurelius for a period of 3 years, commencing July 1st, 2015, and terminating on June 30th, 2018, with changes to the signatories as noted by Chief Minshaw.
second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the service agreement with the change of the clerk's name to Tracy Ayers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item E on the agenda. Item F on the agenda. Have to perfect this check marking. Is a motion to accept the fire services contract between the City of Mason and the Township of Vevay. Mr. Colburn?
We were aware there was consideration of Mr. Howe possibly retiring again, but I was under the impression that was at next month, so I guess I misunderstood the timing of that. But that being said, it's the same circumstances in regard to the fire services between the township and the city as Aurelius.
Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Is there any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Drosha.
I move to accept the fire services contract between the City of Mason and the Township of Vevay for a period of 3 years, commencing July 1, 2015, and terminating June 30th, 2018.
I second the motion.
Is that motion been made substituting the name of Jesse Ramey as his supervisor?
Why, yes, I have.
I thought it was. And seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor, I don't understand why we're doing that, because there's been no public announcement of any retirement of any kind.
That we've received as a council. Apparently, city staff, as in Chief Minshaw, has received that.
If I can clarify,
Sure.
Mr. Howe told us in the discussion that he would be retiring in the near future. I guess I misunderstood the date or timing of that. I thought with this agreement it was still to have his name on it. Either way, I would just recommend passing it with the supervisor of the township, and you should be fine.
It's a minor technicality. Is there any discussion on Mayor Pro Tem Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a matter of clarification, should any official changes take place between the point at which the contract is executed and signed, do we need to do anything to authorize administration to make small technical changes, or are you automatically authorized to do that if the signatories have indeed changed?
I believe since you've approved the contract in kind that it should be just fine, whomever their supervisor is.
And any other questions? All those in favor of the motion to accept the fire services contract between the City of Mason and the Township of Vevay with the name of Jesse Ramey as the Township Supervisor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. The final item on regular business, G, is a report on liquor license notification. Mr. Colburn.
As the report references, there's several different liquor licenses being that have been forwarded to the state. Two of them are dealing specifically with the property along Cedar Street. In essence, it's a party store, and that request has come in from Mr. Singh. It's what we've known as the Canvasback building, right near the curve. And then the third one was submitted by City Limits Sports Grill and Bowling Center. And there's a number of different types of liquor licenses and which ones can go or don't go to the City Council has changed and varies. There are still actually some that would and could come back to the City Council. In this case, it's meant to be informative to you since it is an issue that historically had gone to the City Council.
Are there any questions for Mr. Colburn? Mr. Colburn, I just have one regarding 515 North Cedar Street. Has anything else officially been received by the city that is changing the purpose of the building that I remember as the former Vanderveen's landscaping from the 70s, somewhere in there?
No, but there wouldn't be in terms of zoning. I believe that's already properly zoned.
Zoning, I looks like is the same, but it now just looks like a building, vacant, perhaps. Okay.
No, not that I'm aware of.
This just by the fact that the applicant is Rocks Mason Party Store Inc. hints that there may be a change in the street view or shortly.
I can't tell you one way or the other. I don't have any information on that.
Okay. Well, that concludes our rather lengthy business agenda. For the most part, unfinished business. Councilmember Ferris.
No unfinished business.
Councilmember Clark.
None.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
I have no unfinished business.
Councilmember Mulvaney.
None.
Councilmember Drosha.
None.
New business. Councilmember Ferris.
No new business.
Councilmember Clark.
None.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, one item this evening, I don't know if it requires formal action, but I did want to bring to the attention of the council that the MML Capital Conference is next week, and I know that the city usually sends individuals to that conference. I know some years the council has designated officially individuals for that conference, and other years we've just opened it up to whomever wanted to attend. So I at least wanted to put that out there and see what the pleasure of the council was in either designating official attendees or simply expressing interest from individuals that might be able to attend. The dates of the conference are Tuesday, March 24th from noon until 6 p.m., and Wednesday, March 25th from approximately 7 a.m. until about 6 p.m., and that's at the Lansing Center.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brown. Is there, and that's a good point, we normally have in the past historically designated a delegate to attend. Does anybody have any specific interest for either one or both of those dates? There is a small amount, I believe, in the budget that might offset some registration fees.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Mulvaney.
I'm interested in why our clerk doesn't think we have to have a delegate.
I'm thinking that in October there's always the convention that we assign. They require that we assign a delegate to, and for the conference we usually just, if you're interested in attending, that would be fine.
I understand. That's perhaps my error by using that word. I was intending that we have sometimes delegated a particular council member to go on behalf of council, not that they were requiring a delegate to attend as in the annual conference. So, good catch. So the question is still there. Is there any interest in attending? In years past, I recall that I've been on council, if there is no other defining factor, the mayor generally attends the annual conference and the mayor pro tem the capital conference for lack of any other criteria to determine that. So I'm just throwing that out there. It doesn't have to be that way this year by any means.
I would be interested in attending.
Any particular day or either? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Sure. I'll add, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Ferris, but in the past couple of years, we've sent maybe 2 or 3 people to the local Capitol Conference since it was right here in Lansing. And if that's the case, I would certainly defer to Councilmember Ferris to attend, but if we have the availability to send more than one person, I would also express interest in going. And if there aren't the funds there, I would be willing to pay some of the registration fee on my own as well.
I do know we've missed the early bird registration deadline, but I believe as a member of some of their functions, we may still have a significant discount. Mr. Colburn, would you mind looking into that administratively? And
through the because we're a member of the Workman's Comp program, you're right, there is a discount.
Thank you. That looking into that and distributing the information, perhaps via email, we can.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Ferris.
There is also a leadership summit that we have on Thursday from 8 to 12. So that week is going to be a little full.
Okay. Okay. That sound good to everybody? We'll watch our emails and make our choices from that.
I have no more new business.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. New business, Councilmember Mulvaney.
None.
Councilmember Droste.
None.
Correspondence. I don't believe I have any correspondence this evening. Any other correspondence?
I received an email from the Parks Board, and their budget discussions are tomorrow at noon at the Human Services Building.
Okay. You've been regularly attending. Are you planning to attend? And might I trouble you with an informal liaison report after? Thank you. No. Liaison reports. Mr. Mulvaney, Historic District Commission.
We have not met. I'm sorry, we did not meet since the last meeting. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown, Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Planning Commission met last week, and we had 2 points of discussion. The first was a presentation about the Mid-Michigan Health Assessment Impact Tool. It's a very useful resource that has been created and established by the Tri-County Regional Planning Association. I will make that link available to the council members. The link was in our in our Planning Commission packet. But it has a twofold purpose. The first is that it enables communities to have a light version of GIS or mapping software where we can go parcel by parcel within this web application. We can look at the specifics of the parcel based on Tri-County's data, and then apply on top of that several different layers of information, many of which are health-related, looking at air pollution statistics for the area, wetland information, other things that might be indicators of the overall quality of health in that particular community or in that particular part of the community. And so this was a really good resource that our planning staff will be using as they begin to evaluate not only the sub-area plans that we're looking at for the master plan, but also just our regular zoning uses and also our regular site plan approvals. And so once again, another resource that we have by virtue of our participation in this particular organization, and it seems to be a very good resource for Mr. Haywood and the city staff to have. The second item that we discussed was a continuing discussion of the medical marijuana ordinance, and Mr. Colburn has indicated a brief update in his administrator report. But what came out of that discussion is that the committee is continuing to meet, the subcommittee, of the Planning Commission is continuing to meet, look at this issue, and they're going to be reaching out to the public very soon for input, and part of that input process will include the surrounding communities, including not only the residents of surrounding communities, but the leadership of surrounding communities as well. And there may be an opportunity for planning commissioners from our community and our surrounding communities to, on an informal basis, come together and discuss what the three communities might actually do, so that, per Councilmember Mulvaney's concerns, that we wouldn't do something and then an action could be circumvented by going right outside of the border. So I'll leave Mr. Colburn to explain that a little bit more. I'll also indicate that the sub-area plan committee, they're looking at continuing some meetings to essentially flesh out different components of the master plan, looking at some of our corridors, whether it's Kip Road or Cedar Street, and that sort of thing. And so those discussions are ongoing. They'll be very interesting, and basically kind of shows that our master plan is a living and breathing document, that just because we passed it last year, it still will be continuously improved and continuously developed at even yet a more detailed level. That being said, our next meeting will be in April, and I believe the date is April 14th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Traffic Commission, Councilmember Drosha.
I don't have as much to say as Marlon did. Traffic will meet April 22nd right here, 5:30. That happens to be Earth Day, so that'll help you remember.
Earth Day? Thank you. Tree Commission, Councilmember Ferris.
We will have a meeting coming up in April. We usually have the Arbor Day dedication on the last Friday in April. And we are still accepting nominations for people who would be honored by having a tree named for them or planted for them. So, letter to the city clerk will suffice. Email will suffice. Thank you.
Thank you. The DDA met and approved the financial reports for the months of February and January 2015. Also approved a motion to compensate Boy Scout Troop 763 for the 2014 flower watering project that they do. We also received a request from the Ash Street Redevelopment LLC, the entity behind the renovation of the 124 and 140 East Ash Street buildings. They were requesting an early payment from the DDA portion of their financing. In looking more closely and scrutinizing that request, they may have been under the assumption that our fiscal year budget was a calendar budget. They were looking to have the second payment, which would have been for the upcoming fiscal year, about 7 days early than when it would normally have transpired by becoming part of the official new fiscal year budget on July 1st. So upon explaining that, the Ash Street Redevelopment LLC was okay with just going with what they may have already been told in the very first place. And so there will not need to be any type of a budget amendment for that. It'll be going on as planned. We also just received a report on some of the bills paid since the last meeting. Discussed a couple of things, the new DDA website, or the revamping of the DDA website, and a discussion was held about pursuing some additional bike racks in the downtown area that would augment what's there and being strategically placed for some of the anticipated deeds and upcoming events. Council member reports. Are there any specific council member reports? Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to share with the council that on Sunday, March 8th, I had an opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. for the National League of Cities Congressional Cities Conference. You may recall earlier this year I shared with the council that I had been appointed to the Community and Economic Development Policy and Advocacy Committee, and so the reason for my trip was to participate in that meeting. So I brought back some handouts. I want to pass these around. And I have brought first a copy of our agenda from that meeting, and you can see some of the individuals that came in and spoke to us. We had representatives from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, as well as representatives from the National League of Cities staff. It was a very informative meeting, but the work of the committee continues throughout the year as we sort of take a deep dive into National League of Cities policies on community and economic development, and then make recommendations based on our local experiences and what our communities are doing. And so I share this information with you. I'll share it with our Planning Commission and Planning and Zoning Director, because this gives us an opportunity to share our voice on any federal legislation that impacts community and economic development. The second item in the packet that I share with you was a very interesting session that I had an opportunity to attend, and this was called Big Ideas for Small Cities. And we had 6 mayors from communities under 100,000 residents that talked about different things that they're doing in their city. And it was nice to see the National League of Cities start to focus on some of the smaller communities as opposed to the large metropolitan areas. And I won't go through all of them, but you can see what the different mayors talked about. One community started a book festival, which I thought was really interesting, and it might be nice to talk to our library and the Friends of the Library about whether or not a book festival could be held here in Mason. Other economic development activities were taking place. One community actually took an old building and turned it into a mixed-use residential and commercial facility, very similar to what we're doing with Ash Street. So maybe, Mr. Mayor, next year you can go and talk about that particular project. The last thing I want to share with you, I also brought back congressional directories, and I'm going to pass those down as well. And I have one for each of the council members that are here today, as well as our city clerk. But part of this conference is to allow city officials to go to D.C. and to talk to federal legislators and federal staff about issues that are important to them. And even though I booked it back to Mason so I could be here for the sesquicentennial, we were given the resources of a new congressional directory. Our own Michigan delegation has changed quite a bit, so this will give you the addresses and phone numbers of our newest members. But I would encourage you to take a look at the work that NLC is doing, and for us all to be engaged, because we represent the voice of our residents here, and certainly there are some issues at not only the state level, as we have vigorously debated tonight, but also at the federal level that we ought to take advantage of voicing our residents' concerns at that particular level of government. And so I just wanted to share that with you. I also have the program. Feel free to snag it and take a look at it. One of the highlights this year was that President Obama actually addressed the National League of Cities on Monday. I was actually here for more pressing affairs, and so you can still watch that particular speech online and hear about one of the new initiatives that the President is also pushing that cities can be a part of. So with that, I just wanted to bring back some good resources and let you know about that particular conference, and hopefully next year maybe a few of us can go to D.C. and knock on Congressman Bishop's door and talk to him about some of our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. While you're on the spotlight, would you like to also update us on the Mason 150th Sesquicentennial Committee? What is planned next?
Sure. Well, we had a beautiful celebration last Monday. It was It was covered in the local media. We even made the 11 o'clock news on WLNS. So thank you to everyone who was involved with that, all of our program participants. I want to especially acknowledge both Bob and Debbie Swertnevich. They really helped to get the room in order and to get our audio system as best as it could be for that particular ceremony. And I noticed today that on our website we actually have the video of the ceremony. So if you missed it or even just want to watch it again, you can actually watch that on the City of Mason website. I also want to acknowledge just a few people that were kind of behind the scenes. Rita Vogel was very helpful with our reception afterwards. There was a beautiful cake that was made by Karen Wilson, and also our Citizens of the Year, Jamie and Scott Robinson, were very helpful in contributing some of the refreshments as well. And like I said before, there are too many people to name, but I wanted to make sure that we did acknowledge those individuals. What's next for the Mason 150 Committee? There are a few things. We're having our next meeting on Monday, April 13th at 6:30. It'll be kind of a recap of what we have done so far and what we still have planned. And now we are gearing up for our summer celebration, which is July 2nd through 5th. That will start out with our Brothers of the Brush beard contest. So those of you that are so inclined, start growing. And we'll also have a Thursday Night Live concert on July 2nd, in addition to a special sesquicentennial parade on the 4th, and a fireworks display, as we always have. And there will be more information about those events and also a proposed time capsule event that we will have during that weekend. So there's a lot still to come. I think that the kickoff was really good for the community. I've received a lot of positive feedback. And by all means, members of the council, members of the community, if there's something that we're overlooking, something that we forgot or neglected, please let us know. This is not my celebration. This is not our celebration as a council. This is a celebration for the entire community. And so we encourage everyone to take part and contribute ideas and events and activities as they so desire. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or save more comments for a future meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any questions? Councilmember Clark. The comments by Pat Hicks was appreciated at the March 2nd meeting on the Sun-Dried Music Festival. Has there been any new and exciting developments since then?
Nope.
Councilmember Ferris, have you been to the Trails meeting since we last met?
Yes, but there is no further action pending the RFP for the professional designer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have just two brief things. The first, I had mentioned at the appropriate time, the agenda, being a participant on the governor's conference call regarding Proposal 1. I don't recall, though, at that time if I mentioned I was the honorable number 64 on the call. Also, last Thursday, the Tim Barron Mornings radio show on 92.9 WLMI FM. The City of Mason again made an appearance and continued the theme of history in the interest of our sesquicentennial that we had celebrated just days before. And the guests, along with myself, included Barb Tornholm, the chairman of the Mason Area Historical Society, and Becky Clinton, chairperson of the Historic District Commission. And we talked briefly about some historic events at that time, not knowing the next day that Tim Barron was going to announce that it was his final day on that radio program. And so he was officially off the air at 9 o'clock. He's pursuing an internet radio station, and everybody should stay tuned. He expects that to be up and running hopefully in 30 days. And I think at that time that happens, we'll all be hearing more about what those endeavors are. He's been a part of our monthly program for several years now, and just thought that was worthy of mention. Mr. Colburn, Administrator's Report.
Yes, we had the meeting, as you know, with the supervisors in regard to the fire contracts, but took the opportunity to discuss the question that arose at the joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the City Council about how we impact each other with our neighbors, and whether or not this was a good discussion and whether they would be willing to come to the table, particularly Vevay. Both supervisors were there, Supervisor Howe and Supervisor Silsby, and concurred that it would be a very good discussion. We talked about process and came to the conclusion we thought the best process would be to assign personnel from the three different respective planning commissions to start with, as that's where most of this originates from in terms of zoning ordinances and such. So that dialogue has taken place. There's interest, and we'll work with the respective supervisors and staff to try to put together that first meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Are there any questions for Mr. Colburn, Administrator's report? Seeing none, that elusive item on tonight's agenda, number 16, adjournment. We are adjourned.
Huh? Yeah.
She